in a landscape where the vastness of Russia's rivers and lakes was both a blessing and a curse. The flow of resources, soldiers, and information was vital to the survival of the Soviet state. During the 1930s, a revolutionary idea began to gain traction among Soviet engineers. An idea destined to change the way the Soviet Union prepared for war. It was a land where geography, unforgiving and challenging, separated people, but at the same time connected them. The USSR knew that to survive in an increasingly turbulent world, the ability to move troops, supplies, and information across this liquid expanse would be key to its military strategy. There was no time to waste. The rivers, lakes, and marshes that would cover more than a third of Soviet territory were both friends and enemies. It was in this scenario of immense challenges, where lines of communication and transportation were limited, that a bold solution was about to emerge. An idea that would combine the power of warships with the flexibility of land vehicles. A project that would not only protect the nation's coasts, but also launch itself with ferocity into the depths of the waters and even into the heart of enemy territory. And so, in 1935, an innovative vision materialized in the form of an armored boat that would defy the conventions of naval and land warfare. Meet the BK-1124, the armored boat that would become the floating sword of the USSR in the most decisive moments of the Second World War. A silent giant that would sail through deep, imposing waters, carrying with it the weight of history and the power of revolution. It was here, in the hands of Soviet engineers and workers, that the BK-1124 came to life. A ship capable of facing the treacherous waters of Russia and the horrors of World War II. Its existence, to this day, stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the determination of a nation at war. This was only the beginning of its journey. The story of the BK-1124, like many other symbols of Soviet military engineering, is intertwined with the history of war itself, where every battle, every incision in the icy waters, would change the course of the conflict. But for the BK-1124, its destiny was only just beginning. In the first half of the 20th century, the Soviet Union was an empire of incomparable proportions, where geography seemed to protect and isolate at the same time. A vast land where, between the fogs of Siberia and the endless fields of Western Russia, transport and communication were more difficult than any other challenge. The country, immense and fragmented, was far from being a nation unified by paved roads or railway lines. And even though the USSR was rich in natural resources, its vast and uninhabited lands made it difficult to quickly send troops and supplies to the most remote points of its territory. The greatness of the Soviet Union, its strength and resources, also brought with it a deadly fragility. The cities and towns that made up its immense territory, although often geographically close, were disconnected by a precarious infrastructure. Few roads linked the regions to the rest of the empire, and rail transport still did not reach every corner of the immense nation. The great obstacle lay in the connection between the parts of this colossal machine, a machine that needed to move quickly and efficiently to sustain its defense. But there was one constant that ran throughout the Soviet Union, something that could connect the ends of the nation more efficiently: the vast network of rivers and lakes. These waterways, which cut through mountains and plains, formed the backbone of transportation routes, allowing goods and troops to travel vast distances, crossing the vastness of Russia from one end to the other. For the Soviets, rivers were not just a natural resource, but a lifeline. The Soviet Union, with its vast water network, was at the heart of a water empire. Yet while rivers were a vital link, they also posed immense challenges. The vastness of liquid could be a trap, and the treacherous nature of bodies of water, with their unpredictable courses and harsh conditions, became a hindrance in times of war. But the need to dominate these waterways was clear. If the USSR was to survive and expand its power, it was imperative that it find ways to control these waters and turn them to a strategic advantage. The answer lay in a simple but revolutionary concept: adapting ancient warships to the challenges of modern warfare. If the USSR could transform its rivers into a controlled battlefield, it would be possible not only to transport resources and troops, but also to launch rapid, strategic strikes deep into enemy lines. In an empire where rivers united and divided, Soviet engineers were on the verge of forging a solution that would, in time, forever alter the way war would be fought in Russia's deep and treacherous waters. In 1935, as the USSR faced an unpredictable and threatening future, a new type of vessel was beginning to be imagined. An armored boat, designed to cut through Russia's rivers with speed and power, ready to turn the challenges of water into a decisive advantage. The future of river warfare was about to be written. In 1935, the Soviet Union, aware of the need to prepare for a future of uncertainty and imminent threats, made a bold decision to reinvent the way war would be fought on its waters. The idea was simple but revolutionary: to create a vessel that was at once agile, armored, and capable of bearing the brunt of modern warfare. A vessel that could cross rivers and shallow lakes, cut through swamps, and reach the most inaccessible points of the empire, while at the same time being an unbeatable strike platform. Thus was born the BK-1124 project, a visionary idea that would combine the power of river transport with the strength of a battle tank. From the outset, Soviet engineers had a clear objective: to create a vessel that was compact, yet powerfully armored and armed enough to face the challenges of all-out war. The first step was to design a hull that would be both robust and adaptable. The BK-1124 would need a shallow draft so that it could navigate not only rivers, but also the muddy terrain and shallow waters common in the vast plains of the USSR. The initial design specified a hull that was only 75 centimeters high from the bottom to the waterline, which allowed the vessel to operate even in extreme conditions where other boats failed. To ensure that the BK-1124 would be resistant to enemy fire, the engineers chose an innovative armor system. The lower part of the hull was protected by 6 mm thick steel plates capable of withstanding small arms fire, while the upper part of the boat received thicker layers of armor designed to withstand more intense bursts of machine gun and light artillery fire. This combination of strength and agility was a difficult balance to achieve, but the USSR was determined to meet this challenge. But the real innovation of the BK-1124 lay in its armament. Soviet engineers made the bold decision to equip the vessel with two 75 mm guns taken from the powerful T-28 and T-35 tanks. These guns, known for their effectiveness in ground combat, were adapted and mounted in rotating turrets, one forward and one aft. With this configuration, the BK-1124 was not just an armored vehicle, but a true fire platform, capable of firing at targets in all directions while sailing on water. The choice of armament was not random. The engineers knew that for a boat to operate effectively on rivers and lakes, it needed more than simple firepower. It needed mobility, endurance, and, above all, the ability to carry out rapid and accurate raids, penetrating behind enemy lines and destroying strategic targets. As the design of the BK-1124 took shape, a unique feature of this new type of vessel began to stand out: its ability to act as a true hybrid warfare vessel. It was not just a vessel, but a combat system, capable of moving with near stealth through riverine areas, engaging in combat with precision, and escaping with equal agility. When the first prototype of the BK-1124 was finally rolled out, Soviet engineers knew they had created something unique. This was not just a boat, but a multifaceted weapon tailored to the specific challenges of warfare in the Soviet Union. The BK-1124 would not only be a symbol of technical innovation, but also a strategic tool that would change the way the USSR would engage its enemies for years to come. With the BK-1124's design finalized, the USSR was ready to transform the concept into a working war machine. But for the BK-1124 to be truly effective, It was necessary to ensure that its technical characteristics were suitable for real combat, not just on paper. Every component, every detail, had to be meticulously adapted so that the vessel could not only withstand the hardships of shallow, turbulent waters, but also the dangers of enemy fire. The BK-1124's armor, as mentioned, was one of the keys to its effectiveness. The hull, made of 6 mm thick steel, was designed to withstand small arms fire and shrapnel, while the upper part received thicker armor, reinforced to withstand hits from larger caliber weapons and intense machine gun fire. However, the balance between armor and mobility was crucial. The USSR knew that it could not allow the armor to be so heavy that it compromised the boat's seaworthiness. The result was a robust hull, but with impressive maneuverability in shallow waters and marshy terrain. In addition, designing a draft of only 75 centimeters was a strategic choice. This shallow draft allowed the BK-1124 to easily navigate narrow rivers and shallow lakes, which were common in the most remote regions of the Soviet Union. This gave the vessel a crucial advantage in environments where other combat vehicles simply could not operate. The ability to maneuver through these shallow and irregular waters also provided the flexibility needed for infiltration and rapid attack missions. But there would be no point in having an agile boat if it was not capable of engaging the enemy directly. That is why the BK-1124 was equipped with two 75 mm cannons, taken from the renowned T-28 and T-35 tanks. These cannons, known for their robustness and firepower, were mounted in rotating turrets, one forward and one aft. This configuration gave the BK-1124 the ability to engage targets from virtually all directions, giving it an advantage in any combat it was involved in. In combat, it was not just a matter of survival, but of becoming a powerful and relentless attack platform. In addition to firepower, mobility was essential. The BK-1124's propulsion system, with engines specially designed to operate in difficult conditions, ensured that the boat was fast and maneuverable, even in murky or muddy waters. The propulsion was adjusted to support navigation in fast-flowing rivers, as well as to ensure the necessary speed during rapid raids, where the element of surprise could be decisive. Another key aspect to the BK-1124's effectiveness was its ability to transport troops. Although the vessel was designed for combat, it was also configured to be a fast and efficient transport. Within its hull, the BK-1124 could carry a considerable number of soldiers, allowing them to quickly launch into enemy lines or be withdrawn from combat areas with the same agility. It was a floating transport capable of operating as an attack and withdrawal force. With this combination of armor, firepower, and mobility, the BK-1124 was ready to be used for a variety of different missions. It would not be just a combat vessel for rivers and lakes, but a strategic tool that could be used to conduct raids, support infantry operations, and even act as a floating defense point. These technical characteristics were not merely engineering details. They were the essence of what the BK-1124 represented to the USSR. More than a boat, more than a combat vehicle, the BK-1124 was a direct response to the need for a new type of warfare, where flexibility on the ground and adaptability to the combat environment would be as important as firepower. It symbolized the Soviet ability to innovate in the face of difficulties, forging a weapon that, although modest in size, was immense in its effectiveness and versatility. From 1941 onwards, the shadow of war stretched across Europe. The Soviet Union, until then involved in its own modernization projects, was unable to avoid the approaching cataclysm. With the Nazi invasion, the USSR was forced to accelerate its military preparations. War was imminent, and its armed forces needed to adapt quickly to the challenges of a conflict on a global scale. To do so, the BK-1124, although already promising, would need to undergo a series of modifications that would make it even more lethal and efficient in the extreme conditions of the battlefield. The main need was to improve firepower. Although the 75 mm guns initially mounted were effective, the USSR soon realized that as the conflict intensified, the need for greater destructive power became urgent. German forces were armed with heavy tanks, long-range weapons, and increasingly sophisticated combat units. To counter this threat, the BK-1124 would need more powerful armament. It was then that Soviet engineers opted for one of the most significant changes in the boat's design, replacing the 75mm guns with turrets from the legendary T-34 tanks. By replacing the 75mm guns with the T-34's turrets, the BK-1124 received a significantly more powerful and modern weapon. The 76.2mm gun, mounted in a rotating turret, not only provided greater range and accuracy, but was also better able to counter the armor of heavier enemy vehicles. This allowed the BK-1124 to become not just a troop transport, but a real threat to any enemy armored force, especially in river combat, where the vessel's agility could be a decisive advantage. In addition to the increase in firepower, other improvements were implemented to ensure that the BK-1124 would be even more effective on the battlefield. Increasing the thickness of the armor was one of these crucial changes. In an all-out war scenario, where air strikes and heavy artillery fire were becoming increasingly common, vessels needed to be more resilient. The additional armor made the BK-1124 safer against shells and shrapnel, increasing its survivability in the most intense combat zones. Another important aspect of the BK-1124's adaptation was the improvement of the propulsion system. During the first tests, it became clear that the boat's speed and maneuverability could be improved, especially when operating in adverse conditions, such as on rivers with strong currents or murky waters. To this end, Soviet engineers adjusted the engines, making them more powerful and capable of sustaining the vessel at high speeds, even when facing difficult waters. This made the BK-1124 even more agile, capable of carrying out rapid raids and strategic retreats without losing the ability to engage the enemy. These changes were not only technical but also strategic. The BK-1124 increasingly came to be seen not just as an armored boat, but as a true mobile combat platform. With the addition of more powerful guns, reinforced armor, and improved propulsion systems, it became a versatile tool capable of performing a wide range of missions, from supporting ground troops to rapid strikes against strategic points, or even reconnaissance operations in enemy waters. With these adaptations, the BK-1124 not only rose to the challenges of the conflict, but also became one of the most effective weapons on the rivers and lakes of the USSR. While meeting the needs of a rapidly escalating war, its flexibility and endurance made it an indispensable force on the waterfronts, where other combat vehicles simply could not perform. These improvements ensured that the BK-1124 played a crucial role in Soviet campaigns, especially during the invasion of Nazi Germany. It was not just an armored vessel, but a real threat to enemy flanks. Its ability to advance quickly, deliver troops to strategic points, and launch devastating attacks behind enemy lines made it a vital tool for the Soviets, thus changing the dynamics of warfare on the water. The BK-1124 was more than just a combat vessel. During the war years, she became a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation. As the USSR faced a brutal and unforgiving war, with powerful enemies and harsh conditions, the BK-1124 proved that she could survive in the roughest waters and on the most unforgiving battlefields. Her resilience was tested to the limit, but remarkably, many of these vessels managed to withstand enemy fire, air attack, and even mines, becoming one of the main fighting forces on the waterfronts. Despite being a relatively small design compared to the large tanks and aircraft of the time, the BK-1124 stood out for its versatility. During the war, more than 100 of these vessels were produced, and each of them was sent to the rivers, lakes, and swamps of the Soviet Union. From their bases inland, they crossed intense battlefronts, transporting troops, destroying strategic targets, and striking enemy positions with precision. These missions were not easy. In many cases, the BK-1124s faced heavy artillery, air attacks, and underwater mines. But, against all odds, They continued to operate and prove themselves effective. Some of these boats were damaged in combat, but many survived, showing unexpected resilience. Many suffered serious injuries and significant damage, but with their improvised repair systems and their design strength, they continued to play their role. The presence of the BK 1124 on the front lines was often decisive, as it could strike unexpectedly, destabilizing the enemy, and at the same time provide a safe retreat point for Soviet troops. Its ability to operate in extreme conditions was in itself a victory. For many soldiers and officers of the USSR, the BK 1124 was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of Soviet determination. During the offensives in the East and in the defense against Nazi attacks, these silent and relentless boats faced the greatest challenges with a courage that few armored vehicles could have shown. It was not only the weapons and armor that made the BK 1124 effective, but also the spirit of resistance that it represented. At a critical moment, it became the last line of defense and the first line of attack. With the end of the war, the BK 1124 was not forgotten. Many of the boats that survived the conflict were preserved and became a legacy of military engineering. Today, their remains can be found in museums and exhibitions dedicated to the memory of the Second World War. They are witnesses to an era when innovation in the field of warfare was not limited to tanks and airplanes alone, but also found strength and resilience in the silent boats that sailed the murky waters of history. While the BK 1124 was never as famous as the great battle tanks or combat aircraft, its contribution to the Soviet war effort was immeasurable. It showed that in times of need, the simplest solutions can also be the most effective. In a war fought on all fronts, the BK 1124 was a vital tool in the hands of the Soviets, turning rivers and lakes into combat zones where even the most powerful enemy could be defeated. Today, the legacy of the BK 1124 is remembered not only for the role it played in World War II, but for the symbol of ingenuity and resilience it represents. In a world where the power of heavy weapons often overshadows the stories of more humble weapons, the BK 1124 stands as a reminder that in times of adversity, creativity and determination can be as powerful as the mightiest of tanks. The BK 1124 may not have been the most imposing or famous ship of the Second World War. It was not a giant of the seas, nor a war machine that dominated the battlefields like the great tanks or aircraft of the time. But in its own space, on the rivers and lakes of the vast Soviet territory, it played an irreplaceable role, showing that in times of need, even the smallest of tools can have a decisive impact. Today, in museums and memorials around the world, the remains of a BK 1124 remind us of an era when great battles were fought not only on the plains or in the air, but also on the murky waters, where silence and strategy were the most powerful weapons. Its hull plates, now worn by time, and its cannons, which once fired with deadly accuracy, still speak of a time when Soviet innovation crossed the rivers of fate, facing enemies and adversity in every form. It is easy to forget the small cogs of history, those machines that did not achieve immortal glory but were fundamental in changing the course of the conflict. The BK 1124 was one of those cogs. With its mobility in shallow waters, its resistant armor, and its formidable armament, it became a silent ghost that sailed through the shadows of war, transforming rivers and lakes into battle zones where Soviet soldiers found not only refuge, but a strategic advantage. Although its history was not marked by great publicly celebrated victories, the legacy of the BK 1124 lives on in the memories of those who were on its vessels, those who fought and won with it as an ally. It represents military ingenuity, the ability to adapt in the face of adversity, and the courage to face unexpected challenges. In a world where great war machines often dominate historical narratives, the BK 1124 teaches us that strength lies not in size or firepower alone, but in the ability to stand firm despite the odds. The USSR's armored boat, with its endurance and versatility, will always be remembered as a symbol of silent struggle and innovation on the waters that have shaped the fates of thousands. Thus, the BK 1124, though forgotten by many, continues to float in the memories of those who knew its courage, its cannons, and the determination of its blades cutting through the waters of history. May its journey, though silent, never be forgotten,